Greetings, traveler. I'm glad to see you in my tavern. Here you may rest after a hard road, drink a mug of good ale, and listen to an old, honest witcher's tale, one that smells of smoke, winding roads, and silver coins. The moon was high above the Pontar Valley, its pale light falling on mist-wrapped meadows and the winding silver thread of the river below. The hooves of a horse broke the quiet rhythm of the night, steady, patient, unhurried. Upon its back rode a man in a weathered black coat, his hair as white as frost and eyes gleaming gold beneath a drawn hood. Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher. The wind carried the faint scent of rain and pine, but also something else. Burnt herbs, old magic, and death. Geralt slowed roach and glanced toward the horizon. A thin column of smoke rose in the distance, too thin for a campfire, too steady for a hearth. Someone was burning something with purpose. He sighed, knowing such scents often led to trouble. He had been summoned by letter, written in a hand he recognized from years ago. Alzur, the name itself stirred memories. A brilliant, reckless mage who once sought to change the very nature of life. Their paths had crossed in darker times, when Alzur had toyed with the idea of creating new beings through sorcery. Dangerous, forbidden work, even among mages. Geralt had not seen him since the chaos of Risberg, when Alzur's experiments nearly burned down an entire keep. That the man was still alive surprised him. That he was calling for help surprised him even more. The letter had been simple. Geralt, I have need of your sword once more. The work is delicate, the reward ample. Come to the village of Dornvale in the Pontar Valley. Ask for me at the tower on the hill Algi. Witchers did not take contracts on trust, but Geralt's coin purse was thin and winter drew near, so he rode on through the mist, toward Dornvale. The first signs of life appeared as dawn brushed the sky with gray. A cluster of crooked cottages huddled beneath a hill crowned by an old tower, its stone dark and cracked like the shell of some ancient beast. Smoke curled from its top. The village itself seemed wary, doors half shut, windows barred, eyes peeking through cracks. Geralt dismounted near the tavern. A sign hung above the door, shaped like a bent horseshoe, creaking in the wind. He stepped inside. The tavern was dim, its air thick with the smell of ale and damp wood. Conversation hushed when he entered. Witchers drew attention wherever they went, and rarely the friendly kind. He made his way to the bar, laid down a few coins, and asked, Alzur, tower on the hill. He's still there? The innkeeper, a heavy-set man with red eyes and trembling hands, looked around before leaning close. Aye, he's there right enough. Doesn't come down much. Sends for supplies, pays in gold, no one dares refuse. Any trouble? Trouble? The man snorted nervously. Depends what you call trouble. Livestock vanishing, men going missing near the ruins. The air up there smells of thunder even on clear nights. That's trouble enough for me. Geralt nodded. Thanks. He turned to leave, but a thin woman by the hearth spoke up. If you're going up there, Witcher, take care. The Mage's tower hums at night, like it's alive. Geralt met her gaze. Towers have a habit of doing that when mages live in them. Outside, the sun had climbed higher, though the air remained cold. He guided Roach up the path that wound toward the tower. The land grew stonier, the grass sparser, and soon the ground was littered with shards of crystal and blackened roots. Magic residue, the kind that made the skin prickle. At the tower's iron door, he found no guards, only a sigil glowing faintly, a rune of protection hastily etched. He raised a gloved hand, pressed his medallion to it. The rune flickered, then died. Still careless, Geralt muttered, pushing the door open. The interior smelled of incense, old parchment, and metal. Strange contraptions lined the walls. Glass tubes filled with luminous liquids, copper coils humming softly, cages with crystals that pulsed like hearts. And at the far end, beneath a web of arcane diagrams, stood Alzur. Time had marked him little. His face was pale and sharp, his eyes bright with the same dangerous curiosity Geralt remembered. His robes were simple, though stained with ash and ink. When he turned, his smile was genuine. "Geralt, by the gods, I wasn't sure you'd come. Your letter said coin. Ah, ever the pragmatist. Yes, there will be coin. More than fair, I promise. But this is no simple hunt." Geralt folded his arms. "They never are." Alzur gestured toward a covered table. "You'll want to see this." He pulled back the cloth, revealing a heart, massive, still beating, suspended in a crystal sphere filled with green liquid. Its every pulse sent ripples of light through the chamber. Geralt's hand instinctively went to his sword. "What is that?" "The heart of Veopatis," Alzur said quietly, "an artifact of the elder races. Not quite alive, not quite dead. Bound centuries ago by elven mages to imprison something they feared." Geralt frowned. "Something? A being, a spirit of decay. I need you to retrieve it for me. The heart lies sealed deep beneath the ruins of Mir Ted, in the old forest north of here. You'll have to face the guardians left behind." "And why?" Geralt asked slowly. "Would you want a cursed thing like that?" Alzur's smile thinned. "To end what I began long ago, to perfect the work that created Witchers." Silence hung between them. Outside thunder rumbled, though the sky was clear. Geralt's medallion trembled. Something in that tower was already awake. A storm was rising, though no cloud yet stained the sky. The air itself seemed heavy, waiting for something to break. Geralt felt it in his bones, the stillness before thunder, the quiet drawn like a blade. Alzur's tower groaned as wind swept across the valley. Inside, candles flickered, shadows danced along the walls like restless ghosts. Geralt's medallion still trembled faintly against his chest. The magic in this place was thick enough to taste. "You're tampering with powers that should remain buried," Geralt said at last. Alzur's pale eyes gleamed, half in defiance, half in fervor. "You always said that, Witcher. Yet the world thrives on tampering. The conjunction, the very existence of your kind, all born of men daring to meddle." "I've seen what your daring does," Geralt muttered. The mage stepped closer to the pulsing heart within the crystal sphere. "This is not reckless ambition, Geralt. I have learned restraint. The heart of Veopatis could grant control over corruption, over mutation, even over the chaos that fuels magic itself. If I can study it, I can fix what was broken." "You mean us?" Alzur met his gaze. "Yes, the Witchers, the monsters I made to slay other monsters." Geralt's hand tightened on the hilt of his sword. "You can't undo that. What's done is done." "Perhaps, but perhaps not. I found records, remnants of the elven seals. The heart's resting place is warded, but the wards are fading. I need someone who can survive the journey through the ruins. Coin and danger, always the same. You'll be well paid, 1,000 crowns, half in advance, and I'll owe you a favor, a genuine one, Geralt." Witchers were taught to distrust favors, especially those of mages, yet something in Alzur's tone, guilt, maybe even longing, stayed Geralt's refusal. "Where?" he asked at last. "The ruins lie in the northern wood, half a day's ride from here. The old elven city of Mir Ted, once a jewel of the Insaida, now a nest of cursed things. There is a cave beneath the western arch. That's where you'll find the first gate." "Guarded?" "Undoubtedly. By what, I cannot say. No mortal thing has returned to tell." Geralt sighed softly. "Then I'll bring back your heart, or what's left of me." Alzur's expression softened. "Be careful, Witcher. The heart listens. It remembers those who seek it." Geralt left the tower as the sun began to sink. The sky bled orange over the hills, and crows wheeled in the dying light. Down in the valley, the village of Dornvale was wrapped in uneasy silence. Smoke curled from a few chimneys, but the streets were empty. He rode to the inn to collect supplies. The innkeeper handed him a sack of bread, dried meat, and a flask of water, avoiding his eyes. "If you're going to the forest," the man murmured, "best keep to the paths before dusk. The trees there, they whisper. Folk who wander off the trail don't come back." "I've heard worse whispers," Geralt said, but the man's trembling hands told him enough. He rode out under a sky deepening to violet. The path north wound between black pines and glimmering pools of mist. Roaches' hooves thudded softly on damp earth. The world seemed to hold its breath. As the forest thickened, Geralt felt the air change. Warmer, heavier, alive with a low hum of energy. Strange sigils were carved into tree trunks, glowing faintly as he passed. The remnants of elven wards, decaying but not dead. By moonrise he reached the ruins. Mir Ted lay broken and half swallowed by vines. Marble pillars jutted from the soil like bones, and between them shimmered faint traces of old illusions, flickering images of towers, gardens, and streets that no longer existed. He dismounted and let Roach graze near a stream, then drew his silver sword. His medallion shivered again, the vibration steady and cold. "Cursed right enough," he muttered. The first gate was easy to find. A stone arch covered in moss, its keystone etched with elven runes. Beneath it gaped a tunnel descending into darkness. Geralt lit a torch, its flames sputtering in the damp air, and stepped inside. The passage wound downward, the walls carved with faded murals, elves binding creatures of smoke and shadow, sealing them in crystals, chanting words of power lost to time. Something skittered behind him. Geralt turned sharply, torch raised. Eyes glimmered in the dark, 6 of them low to the ground. A guttural hiss echoed through the tunnel. "Neckers," he breathed. They lunged. Geralt dropped the torch and drew his blade, its silver edge gleaming in the dim light. The first neckers came fast, small, wiry, their claws sharp as glass. He sidestepped, slashed, parried, and moved again. One creature's head rolled across the floor. Another shrieked as his blade split its spine. More came crawling over the walls, their teeth snapping. Geralt muttered a sign, Igni, and fire burst from his hand, engulfing the passage in flame. The smell of burnt flesh filled the air. When the last creature fell, the tunnel was silent save for the drip of molten wax from his torch. He pressed on. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber where a faint green glow pulsed from the walls. At its center stood a pool, its water black as oil. Runes circled its rim, whispering in a language that clawed at the edge of hearing. Geralt crouched and dipped a finger into the water. It rippled, showing images, faces, flashes of battles, mages screaming as the earth swallowed them whole, Then the vision twisted into a single eye, staring back at him, enormous and red. He recoiled, hand on his sword. The water stilled. Something was bound here still. He took a vial from his belt, filled it with a sample of the black liquid, and rose. As he turned toward the next corridor, a voice whispered behind him, "Witcher." Geralt froze. The word was soft, like silk dragged across steel. He turned. No one there. Only shadows, and the faint pulse of green light. He left the chamber swiftly, following the carvings toward the next gate. The air grew colder, the light dimmer. His torch sputtered and died. From the dark ahead came the sound of stone grinding against stone, and then a breath, deep, slow, ancient. Geralt drew both swords, steel and silver. The second gate loomed before him, a circle of obsidian marked with a sigil shaped like a heart. The breath came again, and this time the ground trembled. Something enormous moved within the darkness beyond the gate, a shape of muscle and smoke, chained by runes that glowed like molten iron. A guardian. It turned its head, and two eyes of amber opened, fixing on Geralt. "Damn it," he muttered, readying his blade. The thing roared. The ruins of Mir Ted awoke. The roar shook the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling, and old runes flared to life, lighting the chamber in pulses of red. Geralt braced himself, both swords drawn. The creature emerged from the shadows, its body vast and sinewed, its skin the color of molten ash. Chains bound its limbs, yet it strained against them, claws scraping against stone. Its face was neither beast nor man, something in between, carved from nightmare. Horns curved from its brow, and its mouth burned with an inner fire, the guardian of the heart of Veopatis. Geralt moved first. He darted left, fast as a striking viper, blade flashing toward the creature's knee. The silver sliced deep, sending sparks across the floor, but the guardian barely flinched. It swung an arm as thick as a tree trunk, catching Geralt's shoulder. The Witcher flew backwards, slamming into the wall hard enough to crack the stone. Pain lanced through him, sharp and familiar. He forced air back into his lungs and rolled aside just as the creature's claw smashed into the floor where he'd lain. The impact shattered the flagstones, sending shards flying. Geralt muttered a sign, Quen, and a shimmering field of golden light enveloped him. The next blow hit the shield, bursting in a flare of energy. He countered with Ard, blasting a gust of force into the guardian's chest. The thing staggered, roaring in fury. "Come on, then," Geralt growled. "Let's dance." He lunged again, this time aiming higher. The creature's chest was marked by glowing runes, the source of its bindings. If he could strike there, perhaps he could weaken it. He ducked beneath another swing, leapt onto a broken pillar, and drove his sword downward, straight into one of the runes. The air exploded with light. The rune shattered, the guardian howled, and the chains binding its right arm snapped with a metallic wail. The freed limb swung wildly, smashing through columns and scattering stone. Geralt hit the ground hard and rolled away as the creature lashed out again. It was stronger now, faster. He cursed under his breath. Destroying the runes freed it, but it also weakened the magical restraint keeping it anchored. The floor trembled as the beast advanced. Geralt tossed a dancing star bomb, its fuse hissing. The explosion bathed the chamber in fire, lighting the creature's silhouette in orange glare. Smoke rolled across the ground. When it cleared, the guardian was kneeling, howling in agony. Its skin blistered where silver and flame had struck. Geralt raised his sword for the final blow, but then he saw something move behind the creature. A shape within the gate, The air there shimmered like glass, forming the outline of a figure, tall, slender, and cloaked in ancient elven robes. Its voice was a whisper that filled the room, calm and mournful. "Do not break the last seal, Gwynblyde." Geralt froze. "Who are you?" The figure's eyes gleamed like stars. "I am the Warden of Mir Ted. The guardian you fight was once one of us. We bound the heart to protect this world from what sleeps within it. The mage Alzur sent me. He wants the heart." The spirit's voice grew sharper. "Then Alzur seeks doom. The heart of Veopatis is not a relic. It is a prison. The thing bound within devours life, thought, and magic. It feeds on all that breathes. Break the seal and you loose it upon the world." Geralt's grip tightened on his sword. The guardian rose again, its wounds steaming, its gaze burning with hatred. "If it's a prison, it's already failing," he said. "Your wards are dying." "Yes," the spirit replied, "and so we remain, bound here, holding what we can. But the human mage, he seeks to use the heart's power. He will shatter the final bond. You must not let him." Geralt didn't answer. The guardian lunged again, the ground cracking beneath its charge. He raised Irden, tracing the sign in a circle, trapping the creature in a violet glow. It slowed, howling as the magic burned its skin. Geralt sprang forward and drove his blade through the creature's chest, straight into its second rune. The explosion shook the cavern. The chains dissolved, and the creature fell still, the fire in its eyes extinguished. Its body turned to ash, scattering on the rising wind. The elven spirit bowed its head. "You have released him from torment, but the path to the heart now lies open. You cannot stop Alzur with steel alone." "What can?" Geralt asked. The spirit extended a hand, forming a small crystal that glowed faintly blue. "This shard is part of the old seal. It will protect you for a time, but beware. The closer you come to the heart, the more it will know you." Geralt took the crystal and tucked it into his pouch. "Then I'd best hurry before it gets too acquainted." When he turned, the spirit was gone. Only the faint hum of power remained. He left the chamber through a narrow passage, ascending through twisting stairways and collapsed halls. The walls here were smoother, newer. Human hands had been at work, building over the ruins. Alzur's work, no doubt. The tunnel opened into an underground hall. Candles burned along the walls, their flames steady despite the drafts. Tables stood covered with notes, diagrams, and vials of blood. A half-finished circle of chalk marked the floor. Geralt crouched to study it. The symbols were alchemical, disturbingly familiar, Witcher formulas mixed with forbidden runes of transformation. At the center of the circle lay a body, half human, half something else. Its skin mottled with scales, its eyes glassy. Geralt's stomach turned. "Damn you, Alzur." He found a journal beside the circle, its pages filled with cramped writing. Words like essence extraction, soul infusion, control sequence. The last entry read, "Success near. The heart responds to summoning. The test subjects, though unstable, prove that binding is possible. Once the core awakens, I will no longer need the Witcher's sword." Geralt's jaw tightened. So that was it. Alzur's letter had been bait, coin to lure him here, while the mage prepared his ritual. A rumble passed through the floor, faint but steady. From deep below came the pulse of something alive. The heart. Geralt sheathed his sword and turned toward the stairs leading up. He would find Alzur and stop him one way or another. Above, lightning flashed across the valley. The storm had finally come. And in the distance, atop the tower on the hill, the heart of Veopatis began to beat louder. The storm broke over the valley before dawn, its thunder rolling like the drums of war. Lightning split the sky, bathing the land in flashes of white fire. Rain lashed the ground in torrents, drumming on the rooftops of Dornvale and beating against the walls of Alzur's tower. Geralt rode hard through the night, mud splashing up Roach's flanks as he pressed toward the hill. His medallion quivered against his chest, its vibration constant now, a sure sign that magic was stirring in dreadful force. The tower loomed ahead, black against the storm, every window aglow with unnatural light. At the foot of the hill, the Witcher reined in. The air stank of ozone and burnt iron. Sparks leapt from the stones like fireflies. The wards Alzur had once etched into the soil pulsed red, alive and furious. Geralt muttered, "So much for restraint." He dismounted and sent Roach back toward the trees. "Go," he said softly. "This won't be your kind of storm." The mare snorted once and vanished into the dark. Geralt climbed the slope, boots sinking in the wet earth. The tower doors stood wide open. No guards, no wards now, only the throbbing hum of power, so thick it made his vision swim. He stepped inside. The first floor had changed. The bookshelves, the alchemical tables, the curiosities once scattered through the hall, all gone. In their place, a circle of stone engraved with new runes. Lightning from the storm outside licked across the walls, drawn toward that circle like moths to flame. At its center stood Alzur. The mage's robe hung open, drenched in sweat and rain. His hair was wild, his face ghostly pale, yet his eyes burned with fevered light, reflecting the green glow of the object hovering before him. The heart of Veopatis, freed from its crystal shell, it floated above the ground, pulsing, its veins like molten emeralds. Each beat sent ripples through the air, bending the light around it. Geralt stepped closer, voice hard. "You've gone too far, Alzur." The mage did not turn at once. "I was always too far, Witcher. That is what creation demands." "Creation? You're summoning something you can't control." "I'm binding it. I've prepared for this all my life. The heart will answer to me, or it will be destroyed." "It'll destroy you first." Alzur laughed, a sound thin and mad. "Perhaps. But if I succeed, if I master it, think what it means. No more monsters born of chaos. No more mutations that twist the flesh. We could build witchers who are truly human, who need not be feared. Imagine it." Geralt's jaw tightened. "You don't build humanity with chains and blood." Alzur's hand flicked. The circle flared to life, its runes blazing scarlet. "Then watch, old friend. Watch and see what power looks like when wielded with purpose." The tower shook. The heart began to throb faster, its light turning from green to crimson. The air filled with a low hum that rose into a wail. Geralt's medallion buzzed wildly. "You're waking it," he shouted. "Exactly." Alzur's voice cracked like thunder. "It will obey." The words cut off in a scream. The heart burst open like a wound. A torrent of black mist poured forth, swirling into the air, coalescing into a shape. Tall, featureless, formed of shadow and fire. Two eyes opened within the void, burning red. The heart of Veopatis had awoken. The room dimmed as the creature's presence filled it, snuffing out the torchlight. The air reeked of rot and cold iron. Alzur fell to his knees, clutching his staff. "By the spheres!" Geralt drew his silver sword. "You wanted to bind it," he growled. "Then bind it now." The shadow moved faster than thought, slamming Alzur across the room. The mage crashed against the far wall, blood spraying from his mouth. The creature turned toward Geralt. Its voice was a hiss that seemed to crawl under the skin. "You reek of the old blood, the crafted kind. Then you know what I'm here for." Geralt raised his sword. "To end you." The creature laughed, a deep, echoing sound that made the walls tremble. "End me? You were made from the seeds of my kind. The chaos that shaped you was mine. You are my child, Witcher. Then you're overdue for a family reunion." Geralt leapt forward, blade flashing in the crimson light. The sword bit into the creature's form, slicing through shadow that hissed like steam. The heart shrieked, the sound piercing, otherworldly. Black tendrils lashed out, striking the walls, shattering glass. Geralt rolled aside, slashing again and again. Each blow cut deeper, but the wounds healed as quickly as they came. The creature raised an arm, and a wave of force flung Geralt backward. He hit the stone floor hard, his sword skidding away. The pain was white hot, but he pushed himself up, spitting blood. Alzur staggered to his feet, clutching his staff. "It's feeding. Off me, off the tower. I can't hold it." Geralt's mind raced. The shard, the elven crystal the spirit had given him. He pulled it from his pouch, its blue light flickering. The heart recoiled slightly, hissing. Geralt shouted, "Alzur, focus your power through this. Channel it into the heart." The mage's eyes widened as he saw the crystal, a remnant of the seal. "Use it, damn you!" Alzur lifted his staff, pouring what strength he had left into the shard. Light burst from it, blue and white, cutting through the storm's red glow. The creature screamed, its form unraveling. Geralt seized his chance. He dove for his sword, swung with all his might, and drove the blade straight through the heart's center. The steel passed through like fire through glass. A flash, a sound like the sky itself, breaking apart. The creature exploded into a storm of light and darkness, tearing through the tower. Stones split, beams cracked, and the roof tore away. Rain poured in as Alzur collapsed, the crystal shattering in his hand. The heart's remains hovered for a moment, pulsing faintly, then shattered into fragments of dull stone. The storm outside began to wane, thunder rolling away into the distance. Geralt sheathed his sword and crossed to Alzur's side. The mage lay on his back, breath shallow, blood seeping from a wound across his chest. "I told you," Geralt said quietly. "Some things aren't meant to be touched." Alzur smiled faintly, his eyes glassy. "And yet, if I hadn't tried, who else would have dared?" Geralt knelt beside him. "Rest now. It's done." The mage's gaze drifted toward the ruined ceiling. Rain fell on his face, mingling with tears, or perhaps just the storm. "Tell them I meant well." Then his chest stilled. For a long moment, Geralt said nothing. The rain whispered through the broken tower, washing the blood from the floor. When he finally rose, dawn was breaking. The storm had passed. The air was clear, the valley below glistening with new light. Geralt looked back at the ruins once more. The tower still stood, though hollowed, the remnants of magic fading like dying embers. He turned away and began the long walk down the hill. Behind him, in the depths of the wrecked tower, one of the shattered fragments of the heart pulsed faintly, just once, before falling silent again. The Witcher did not see it. He rode north, the road stretching before him, endless as the world's weariness. The rain had ceased, leaving the Pontar Valley washed clean beneath the waning light of dawn. Mist coiled over the meadows, and the river shone like a blade's edge, cold and bright. Geralt of Rivia rode silently along the muddy road, his cloak heavy with water, his thoughts heavier still. Alzur was gone, his tower lay in ruin, the heart of Veopotis shattered, yet Geralt's medallion still trembled faintly, as though the air itself remembered what had been summoned there. He had destroyed many monsters in his life, but seldom had he left a place so unsure whether the evil was truly ended. Roach snorted and tossed her head. Uneasy, Geralt patted her neck. "I know," he murmured. "It's too quiet." Ahead lay Dornvale, smoke rising once more from its chimneys. Life went on, as it always did after storms, but the Witcher had learned that life returning did not mean peace returning. When he rode into the village, the people stared from their doorways. A child pointed at his silver hair before being hurried inside. Geralt dismounted near the tavern, tying Roach's reins to the post. The innkeeper stepped out, eyes darting to the sword on Geralt's back. "You came back," the man said, voice low. "We saw the lights last night. The tower burned like a star." "It's over," Geralt replied. "The mage won't trouble you again." The innkeeper crossed himself. "And whatever he woke?" "Gone." The man looked relieved, though not entirely. Well, there's always another monster somewhere, isn't there?" "There is," Geralt said, and pushed open the tavern door. Inside, the warmth was welcome. A few villagers sat near the hearth, speaking in hushed tones. They fell silent as he entered. Geralt ignored them, took a seat at the bar, and ordered ale. The innkeeper brought it quickly, hands trembling only a little. He drank slowly, feeling the ache in his ribs, the dull throb in his shoulder where the guardian had struck him. Pain meant life, and life meant the work was not done. After a time, a woman approached, the same one who had warned him before, the one who had said the tower hummed at night. Her eyes were sharp despite the shadows beneath them. "You were up there," she said softly. "You saw him, didn't you? The mage?" Geralt nodded. "He's dead." She stared into the fire. "He came to us months ago. Promised to heal the sick, bless the fields, said he'd make the valley thrive again. For a while he did. Crops grew fast, wounds closed overnight. But people began to vanish. He said they'd gone to help with his work. We believed him." Geralt's jaw tightened. "He used them." She nodded once, eyes glistening. "And now? Now his work is ash, and the valley will heal in its own time." She studied him for a moment longer. "Witcher," she said, "did he suffer?" Geralt hesitated, then shook his head. "No. He saw what he'd done at the end." The woman seemed to accept that. She turned back to the fire, whispering something under her breath. Perhaps a prayer, perhaps a curse. Geralt finished his ale and rose. He had no desire for sleep nor for company. The road called, as it always did. He left payment on the counter and stepped outside, into the cool morning air. The village stirred slowly awake. Men led oxen to the fields. Women drew water from the well. The world, uncaring, moved on. Yet as he mounted Roach, Geralt noticed something strange. The clouds above the tower's ruins still glowed faintly red, though the sun was full in the sky. He frowned. That was no reflection. Without a word, he turned Roach toward the hill once more. The climb was steep, the ground slick with rain. The air grew colder as he neared the tower, and the faint vibration of his medallion returned. When he reached the ruins, he found them silent but not still. Wisps of smoke rose from the broken stones, and the air shimmered faintly where the heart had once hovered. Geralt dismounted and drew his sword. "Show yourself," he said quietly. For a long while there was only the sigh of wind. Then a flicker. A shape took form in the heart of the ruins, faint and wavering like a reflection on water. It was Alzur, or what was left of him. The mage's face was pale and translucent, his eyes two dim embers. His mouth moved without sound for a moment before his voice, hollow and distant, reached Geralt's ears. "Witcher." Geralt's grip tightened on his sword. "You should be dead." "I am, or near enough. The heart. It did not die as we thought. A fragment remains." Geralt's eyes narrowed. "Where?" "In me," Alzur whispered. "It burns. It clings. I tried to bind it, and it bound me instead." The ghost's form flickered, his voice fraying. "I can hold it for a time, but when I fade, it will seek another vessel, the closest living thing." "Meaning the valley?" Alzur nodded faintly. "Destroy what's left of me, Geralt, before it wakes again." Geralt stepped forward, sword raised, but something stopped him. He felt the weight of all the years between them, of the strange bond forged in blood and ruin. Alzur had created witchers, made them what they were. And though Geralt had long despised him for it, he also knew that without the mage's madness he himself would never have been born. "Do it," Alzur urged. "You are the last of my mistakes still walking." Geralt raised his blade and hesitated. The wind howled suddenly cold and sharp. The air crackled with energy. Alzur's eyes widened. "It's too late," he whispered. "It's waking." The ground beneath them split, green light seeping through the cracks. The broken stones rose into the air, circling the ruins. From the depths came a sound, a heartbeat, faint but growing stronger. Geralt cursed and stepped back, sign ready on his palm. "You said it was bound to you." "It was," Alzur cried. "But it learns. It remembers." The ghost's form convulsed and light burst from his chest. The wind roared, scattering dust and debris. The green glow solidified into a swirling sphere of energy, pulsing like a second sun. The shard of the heart, alive again. Geralt muttered an oath and drew Ard, sending a shockwave toward the sphere. It faltered but did not fall. The air around it warped, bending sound and light. The Witcher felt pressure build behind his eyes, the taste of iron in his mouth. He hurled another sign, Igni, flames washing over the ruins. But the sphere only grew brighter, feeding on the fire. Alzur's voice rang out, desperate. "The shard cannot be destroyed with flame or steel. You must seal it. Use the crystal's remnants." Geralt reached for his pouch, but the shard he'd carried was gone, shattered with Alzur's last act. The ground trembled. The sphere began to take shape, forming limbs of light and smoke. Geralt set his jaw. "Then I'll do this the hard way." He leapt forward, silver flashing. The sword struck the core, sparks flying. The energy screamed, lashing out with tendrils of green fire. Geralt ducked, rolled, struck again. The blade sang, but the blows did little more than slow the thing's ascent. "Alzur," he shouted, "help me end this." The mage's ghost raised his hands. "I will hold it, but not for long." Light flared around him, his translucent form blazing with power. The shard shrieked, its form wavering. Geralt drove his sword through the heart of the light, pouring every ounce of his strength into the strike. There was a blinding flash. Silence. Then the world collapsed. When Geralt awoke, he was lying among the ruins. The air was still, the rain long gone. No glow, no whisper, no pulse of magic. Only the faint smell of ash. Alzur was gone for good this time. No ghost, no echo. Just peace. Geralt rose slowly, his body aching but alive. He sheathed his sword and looked east, where dawn's first light spilled across the valley. The Witcher said nothing. He simply stood for a while, letting the wind wash over him, until the ache in his chest faded and the road called once more. He whistled for Roach, and when she came, he mounted and rode north, leaving behind the tower, the ruins, and the faint whisper of a name carried away by the morning wind. Alzur. The road north from the Pontar Valley wound like a scar through the wilderness. Rain had washed the dust from the world, leaving the air sharp and clean. Geralt rode at an easy pace, one hand resting on Roach's reins, the other on his sword hilt. The sky above was pale and clear, but the Witcher's thoughts were heavy as the clouds that lingered on the horizon. He had seen too many men like Alzur, driven by knowledge, blinded by purpose. Yet this one's end stung sharper than most. Alzur had once been a name spoken with reverence among mages, a mind whose brilliance matched his arrogance. He had dreamed of perfecting the Witcher's craft, of shaping monsters that would obey. In his way, he had succeeded. And then the success had devoured him. Geralt had buried that story beneath the ruins of the tower, but he knew it would not stay buried for long. Things born of chaos seldom did. The trail led through fields of wild grain and old stones etched with the marks of forgotten elves. By evening, the Witcher reached a crossroads where a shrine stood, its candles guttered out by the wind. He dismounted, lit one anew, and left a coin beneath it, for luck, though he no longer believed in such things. As he turned to mount again, a rider appeared from the trees, a messenger by the look of him, mud-splattered and weary, but moving with purpose. He saw the Witcher and pulled his horse to a halt, eyes wide. White hair, cat's eyes. You're Geralt of Rivia, aren't you? Geralt nodded slowly. Depends who's asking. Name's Brant, sent from Cadwyn. There's a message for you. The man fumbled at his satchel and drew out a sealed letter. The wax bore the sigil of the Sorceress Guild, two intertwined serpents. Geralt took it, breaking the seal with his thumb. The handwriting was sharp, elegant, unmistakably that of Kira Metz. Geralt, I trust this finds you in one piece, though if you're reading it, you've likely been in the middle of another disaster. Reports have reached us of strange disturbances near Pontar. Light in the sky, tremors felt as far as Banard. I suspect your hand in this, directly or otherwise. More pressing matters await. The Brotherhood requests your presence in Ard Kare. Something old is stirring again in the north. Something connected, perhaps, to your late acquaintance Alzur. Bring what you know. Bring your blades. And Geralt, try not to die on the way. I'd rather not have to fetch your corpse for study. Kira Geralt sighed and tucked the letter away. Seems peace will have to wait. The messenger shifted uneasily. What should I tell them? Tell them the Witcher's coming, and that if this has to do with Alzur, they'd best keep their wards ready. Brant nodded, turned his horse, and galloped back into the woods. Geralt mounted Roach once more, spurred her onward, north toward Cadwyn. 2 days later, the forest gave way to rolling hills, and the road grew busier. Merchants, soldiers, peasants, fleeing rumors of war. Everywhere he passed, Geralt heard whispers of beasts stalking the borderlands, of villages swallowed by fog, of lights dancing over ancient ruins. The stories all had the same thread, magic waking where it should have slept. He camped one night beside a stream, roasting a hare over the fire. The stars burned cold above him, mirrored in the still water. As he ate, His medallion began to hum, faint at first, then stronger. Geralt froze. Something was near. He rose silently, hand on his sword, eyes scanning the dark. At first there was nothing, then he saw it. A faint shimmer across the stream, like heat haze, though the air was cold. It drifted closer, coalescing into a figure, a woman's form clad in tattered robes, her face hidden beneath a veil of shadow. "Witcher," she whispered, voice like wind over glass, "you bear the mark of the heart." Geralt didn't move. "Another ghost? Let me guess. Alzur's handiwork?" "Older," the spirit said. "I am Aline of the Ansevern, one of those who forged the prison you broke." Geralt's grip tightened on his sword. "Then you know it's gone." "Gone?" She laughed softly. "No, it stirs still, scattered but unquenched. You severed the heart, yet its fragments seek one another. They will draw together again, as rivers find the sea." Geralt frowned. "Then what do you want from me?" "To finish what you began," she said. "You carry a trace of its essence, the shard that touched you and the ruins. It clings to your soul, Witcher. Through you, the heart remembers the world." He felt a chill crawl down his spine. "You're saying I'm cursed?" "Bound," she corrected, "but it can be undone. Go north to Ardcarai. Seek the mage who waits for you there. She knows the old tongues. She can help you cut the tether." Geralt sheathed his sword slowly. "And if she can't? Then the heart will wake again, through you." Before he could reply, the spirit faded, her light dissolving into the mist. The forest fell silent once more, save for the crackle of the dying fire. Geralt sat down heavily, staring into the flames. "Bound," she had said. It made sense. The whispers he'd heard in the dark, the faint tremor of his medallion, even when no magic stirred nearby. Perhaps he'd not left the ruins unmarked after all. He poured a measure of strong spirit from his flask, drank, and muttered to the night, "Alzur, you bastard. Even dead, you're still meddling." By the time he reached Ardcarai, winter was crawling down from the mountains. Snow dusted the rooftops, and the castle's towers loomed like spears of stone. Geralt rode through the gates, nodded to the guards, and made for the northern quarter, where the sorceresses kept their lodgings. Kira Metz greeted him in a room filled with parchment, maps, and the faint smell of lilac. She looked unchanged. Sharp eyes, wry smile, the kind of calm that came only to those who believed they were always right. "Geralt," she said, "I see you didn't explode. Good, come in." He removed his gloves, brushing snow from his hair. "You sent for me. You mentioned Alzur." Kira's expression darkened. "His name's been turning up in places it shouldn't. Old laboratories, unearthed in Redania, caches of notes in Aretuza. Someone's gathering his research, and now there are reports of anomalies, magical echoes." Geralt leaned against the wall. "The heart." She looked up sharply. "You know of it?" "I destroyed it, or tried to, but a fragment survived. It infected Alzur and me." Kira went still. "Then you've brought us more trouble than I feared." "Wouldn't be the first time." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "Sit. Tell me everything." He did. From the letter in Dornvale to the tower's fall, to the ghost's warning by the stream. When he finished, the candles in the room had burned low. Kira said nothing for a long while. Then she rose and crossed to a shelf, retrieving a small silver amulet shaped like a crescent. "This will dampen the connection for a time," she said, "but the binding cannot be broken here. The elves forge their seals in places of immense power, places that no longer exist, save one." Geralt raised a brow. "Where?" "The Isle of Thaned." He groaned softly. Of course, always the damned isles. Kira smirked. If it were easy, you wouldn't be worth the coin. He took the amulet, fastening it around his neck. The hum in his medallion lessened, though it did not cease. Thaned, then. And what waits for me there? Kira's smile faded. The last of the elven wardens. If they still draw breath, they will not welcome you. But they may help you if you convince them the world is worth saving again. Geralt rose, tucking his gloves into his belt. Then I'd best leave before the snow buries the road. As he turned to go, Kira called softly, Geralt, be careful. Whatever binds you now, it's not just magic, it's hunger. It will want to live. He looked back at her. So do I. And with that, the Witcher stepped into the cold night, the silver amulet warm against his chest, the shadow of the heart stirring faintly within him. The wind of Cadwyn bit deep as Geralt rode toward the coast. The path to the Isle of Thaned was long and bitter, winding through frozen passes and villages where winter had already sunk its teeth. The Witcher rode without pause, wrapped in silence and snow. Only Roach's steady breathing and the crunch of hooves upon ice broke the endless hush. The silver amulet Kira had given him pulsed faintly against his chest. It dulled the hum of his Witcher's medallion, though not entirely. From time to time he still felt the faint throb beneath his ribs like the beat of a second heart, the fragment of Veopatis. It slept, but never truly rested. At night, the Witcher dreamed. He saw the tower again, Alzur's face alight with ruinous pride. Then the dream shifted, the heart burning like a sun, calling his name, and always, at the edge of hearing, a whisper, "Come north, child of chaos." The circle is not yet closed. He would wake with sweat freezing on his skin, sword drawn before his mind caught up to his body. Each dawn he rode harder, as though speed alone might leave the dreams behind. Days passed into weeks. He crossed the river Yaruga on a half-frozen ferry, paid too much coin for too little comfort in roadside inns, and kept to himself. Word of strange happenings followed him like a shadow. Rivers running backward for an hour at dawn, flocks of birds circling over ruins long since dead, and one rumor that made him stop in the snow. A ship seen burning on the waters near Thaned, its fire green as witchlight. Geralt said nothing, only spurred Roach on. The harbor of Gor's Velen greeted him with sleet and the stink of salt. The docks were crowded with traders from Novigrad and Skellige, their ships creaking in the cold wind. Geralt led Roach through the throng, ignoring the wary glances thrown his way. Witchers were uncommon here, and never welcome for long. He left the mare at a stable and walked to the pier, where ferries bound for Thaned waited. Most were small craft used by fishermen or couriers, but one stood out, a narrow vessel carved with elven runes, its hull black as obsidian. A hooded figure stood beside it, watching him. When Geralt approached, the figure spoke. "White hair, cat's eyes. You are the Witcher Kira Metz sent, yes?" The voice was low, feminine, with the crisp accent of the northern mages. "I am." "You the guide she promised?" "I am Istred," she said, pushing back the hood. Her hair was dark, streaked with silver, her eyes calm and precise. "The Brotherhood bade me ensure your arrival, though I question the wisdom of sending a Witcher where mages once tore the world apart." "I don't care for wisdom," Geralt replied. "Only results." Istred's mouth twitched in a faint smile. "Then come. The winds are favorable, though the sea less so." They cast off at dusk. The boat cut through black water under a bruised sky. The island lay shrouded in mist, its cliffs rising like the spine of a sleeping beast. Once, Thaned had been a place of learning, where mages trained and schemed in equal measure. Now, it was half ruin, half sanctuary, a place where the past refused to stay buried. As they neared the shore, the air grew colder still. The smell of salt gave way to something metallic, almost like blood. Lightning flashed across the clouds, though no thunder followed. "Storm without sound," Istred murmured. "The island is restless. You should not linger long." "I rarely do." They docked at a small jetty of stone. Beyond it, a path wound upward through pines twisted by the sea wind. Old wards glimmered faintly along the rocks, their light pale and sickly. Geralt felt the hair on his arms rise. The magic here was old, wild, and wounded. At the top of the path stood the remains of the academy, arches broken, towers leaning, ivy crawling over shattered marble, yet some part of it still lived. In the highest window, light flickered, steady and golden. Geralt turned to Istred. "Who else is here?" "Few. A handful of scholars, some elven remnants. They keep the wards alive. Whether they'll welcome you..." She left the rest unsaid. "I'm used to doors closing," he said, and started toward the ruins. The hall they entered was vast and empty, its ceiling half gone, open to the gray sky. Snow drifted through the cracks, landing softly on the mosaic floor that once depicted the conjunction of the spheres. A voice spoke from the shadows. "You bring the mark of chaos into our sanctuary." Geralt turned. 3 elves stood at the far end of the hall. They wore robes of white and gold, their faces ageless, their eyes like shards of frozen light. The one in front stepped forward. "I am Avrin, keeper of the seal," he said. "We know who you are, Gwynblyde, and we know what you carry." Geralt's hand rested lightly on his sword. "Then you know why I've come, to break it." Avrin's expression did not change. "The shard bound to your soul cannot be undone by mortal hand. It is part of the heart now. To sever it is to sever life." Geralt frowned. "There's always a way." "The elves who forged the prison, Alin, one of them came to me." At the name, the elves stirred. Avrin's gaze sharpened. "Eileen walks no longer among the living. She did when I saw her." "Then you saw her memory, not her flesh. Her spirit wanders, as do all who failed the heart." Geralt stepped closer. "She told me you could help." "Help?" Avrin's voice turned cold. "We sealed the heart to keep your kind alive. It was men, your mage Alzur, who broke it. Why should we aid the destroyer of our work?" "Because if you don't, it'll wake again," Geralt said, "and this time it won't stop at Cadwyn." The silence that followed was long. Then Avrin raised a hand. The floor beneath them shimmered, and a symbol appeared, an ancient sigil of binding carved into the stone itself. "You will stand within the circle," he said. "We will test the truth of your words." Geralt hesitated only a moment, then stepped forward. The runes flared to life, bathing him in silver light. The elves began to chant, voices rising and falling in an ancient tongue. The air thickened. The amulet on his chest grew hot. Pain lanced through him, sharp and sudden. The world spun, flashes of the heart, of Alzur's face, of fire and ruin, and then a voice that was not his own spoke through his lips. "The child of chaos is mine." The chanting stopped. The light exploded outward, hurling the elves back. Geralt fell to his knees, gasping. The sigil burned beneath him, cracked and blackened. Avrin rose slowly, his face pale. "It speaks through you," he said softly. "The heart has found its vessel." Geralt wiped blood from his mouth. Then cut it out. The elf looked at him long, then shook his head. If we do, you die. If we don't, the heart lives. Sounds like a familiar choice. Evren turned to the others. Prepare the Chamber of Echoes. If the Witcher is to be freed, it will take more than elven magic. It will take the will of both worlds. Geralt pushed himself to his feet. Then tell me what I have to do. The elf's eyes met his. You must go where the heart was first born, to the place even gods have forgotten. Where's that? Averin's voice dropped to a whisper. Beneath the sea. Outside, thunder rolled once more, soft, distant, like the beat of a buried heart. The sea roared beneath the cliffs of Thanedd, gray and endless. Waves struck the rock with the sound of thunder, spraying white mist into the air. Geralt stood at the edge, his cloak snapping in the wind. Below lay a stretch of black water, so deep it seemed bottomless. Behind him, Averin and his two companions watched in silence. Their pale faces betrayed no emotion, but the Witcher sensed unease in the way their hands lingered near their rune-carved staves. So, Geralt said at last, beneath the sea? That's where this all began? Averin nodded. Before the conjunction, before men set foot upon this continent, the Ensavern built a sanctum within the ocean's bones, a place where chaos could not reach. There they forged the heart of Veopatis. But when the spheres collided, the seas shifted, and the sanctum sank. None of our kind have walked its halls since. Geralt looked down at the waves, and you expect me to do it. You are already bound to the heart, Averin said. It will call to you. Its echo will open the path. Geralt gave a short, humorless laugh. You elves always did have a talent for making suicide sound poetic. Averin's silver eyes narrowed. You carry what should not exist. Either the sea takes it back, or the world burns. There is no other road. Geralt turned away from the cliff and walked toward the ruins where Istred waited. The sorcerer had prepared what few tools could aid such a descent. Potions to endure pressure, a charm of breathing, and a faintly glowing orb of guidance. It was pitiful compared to the task before him. Istred handed him the orb. Kira sends her best wishes, he said dryly. She also sends this, an elixir that should keep your blood from freezing solid. The rest is up to you. Geralt took the vial, slipped it into his belt. If I don't come back, tell her to burn what's left. Don't let anyone near the ruins. The mage nodded solemnly. Understood. Geralt turned once more to the sea. The elves had etched a symbol into the cliffside, a spiral surrounded by 13 stars. When they began their chant, the air thickened and the waves below parted for a moment, revealing a stair of light descending into the depths. Go, Averin said. The path will close with the tide. You must reach the sanctum before the third bell of the deep. Bell of the deep? Geralt asked. You will know it when you hear it, the elf replied, his tone leaving no room for question. With that, the Witcher stepped onto the shining stair and began his descent. The water closed over him like glass. For a moment, there was only the muffled roar of the sea and the faint glow of the orb in his hand. Then the charm activated, a shimmer of magic wrapping him in a thin bubble of air. He continued downward, deeper and deeper. The light above faded, swallowed by darkness. Strange shapes moved in the distance, the shadows of great fish, or things older still. His medallion buzzed faintly, not from danger, but from the ancient, sleeping power around him. The stairway ended at a gate of coral and stone half buried in sand. It pulsed faintly with blue light, the same hue as the shard that had once bound the heart. Geralt placed his hand upon it, and the runes flared, recognizing the mark of chaos within him. The gate opened with a sound like a sigh. Beyond lay a tunnel of crystal. Water glided along its outer walls, but did not enter. Geralt stepped carefully, boots echoing on smooth stone. The further he went, the warmer the air became, though no fire burned. The tunnel curved and finally opened into a vast chamber that defied reason. It was a cathedral, carved by the sea itself. Pillars of pearl rose toward a dome that shimmered like the inside of a shell. At the center stood a dais, upon which floated a sphere of greenish light, the core of the heart, or what remained of it. Geralt felt its pull instantly. His chest tightened, his veins burning with the same rhythm as the pulsing orb. He staggered forward, teeth clenched. "So," he rasped, "we meet again." The light flared brighter, and a voice filled the chamber, low, resonant, not heard with the ears, but felt through the bones. "Witcher, you carry my echo. Return it and be whole." Geralt forced himself upright. "I'm not yours, I killed you." "You cannot kill what was never born. You tore the vessel, but the fire remains. You are the fire now." He drew his silver sword. "Then I'll smother it." The orb shuddered, and from it emerged shapes. Specters formed of water and shadow, tall and eyeless. They came silently, their movements fluid as tides. Geralt muttered a curse, ignited the sign of Igni. Fire burst from his hand, burning even underwater, turning the first wraith to steam. He swung his blade, cutting through another, the strike glowing white-hot where steel met magic. But for every spirit he struck down, two more formed. The heart's laughter filled the hall, echoing like the deep bellows of a storm. "You cannot fight the sea, Witcher. You can only drown." Geralt spat blood, his muscles screaming. "I've drowned before." He hurled a bomb, the last from his belt. It burst in a blaze of blinding silver, the detonation shaking the chamber. When the smoke cleared, the spirits were gone. The orb flickered, dimmed. Geralt dropped to one knee, breathing hard. "Tell me," he said, "why? Cling to this world. What do you want?" "To live," the voice whispered. "To remember. You and your kind were made from chaos. You are our seed, our children. Through you, we endure." Not for long. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a dagger, the same blade Alzur had once used in his early experiments. He drove it into his palm, blood spilling onto the floor. The orb pulsed in response, greedily. Geralt's blood was steeped in mutation, the essence of all Alzur's sins. If the heart wanted to feed, it would choke on what it consumed. He pressed his bleeding hand to the orb. The light flared, searing through him. He screamed as the power surged, burning every nerve, every thought. The chamber filled with blinding white, then silence. When the light faded, the orb was gone. Only a faint glow lingered in the cracks of the floor. Geralt lay still for a long time, chest rising shallowly. He could feel it, the shard within him quiet now, no longer pulsing. He had starved the heart. With effort he rose and stumbled toward the tunnel. The air grew colder as he climbed, the water pressing in once more. The stare of light was gone, but the sea itself seemed to lift him, carrying him upward. He broke the surface beneath a silver sky. The storm had passed. On the cliff above, Istrid and the elves waited, their faces unreadable. Geralt pulled himself onto the rocks, soaked and shivering. Evren stepped forward, studying him. "You live? Barely? And the heart? Gone?" The elf inclined his head. "Then the sea has reclaimed what was stolen. The debt between men and elves is settled, for now." Geralt managed a grim smile. "For now" usually lasts until breakfast. Istred handed him a cloak. "Kira will want a full report. Try not to leave out the part where you nearly drowned saving the world." Geralt wrapped the cloak around his shoulders and looked back at the waves. The horizon was calm again, as though nothing had ever stirred beneath. Yet deep down, he knew the truth. Chaos never truly died. It only slept. He turned toward the path leading inland. "Let's go," he said. "The world's quiet. That usually means trouble's on the way." The elves said nothing. The sea wind whispered over the cliffs, carrying with it the faintest echo of a heartbeat, slow, distant, fading. Geralt of Rivia walked on, leaving the sound behind. The road away from Thanedd wound through forests of pine and ash, the trees black against a pale storm-scarred sky. The sea's roar faded behind him, replaced by the sighing of wind through the branches. Geralt rode in silence, the reins loose in his hands, the silver amulet cold against his chest. For days he had slept little. His dreams were shallow pools disturbed by strange ripples, flashes of light beneath dark water, whispers that faded before he could catch them. Yet the shard's pulse was gone. The fragment of the heart that had bound itself to him was silent, like an ember snuffed out. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt hollow. The road narrowed into a muddy track, passing through a valley where fog clung low and the air smelled of rot. Crows circled above, restless and loud. Geralt slowed Roach to a trot. This was not natural fog. The medallion trembled faintly again, not the furious vibration of danger, but a cautious murmur, as if something nearby watched from beyond the mist. He reined in beside a crooked signpost, half swallowed by ivy. The name carved upon it had long since faded, but the faint outline of a wolf's head was still visible. Witcher work once. "Old trail?" Geralt muttered. "Not one I remember." He dismounted and followed the path on foot, sword at his side. The fog thickened, swallowing sound and color alike. Then from the whiteness ahead came a faint glow, blue, wavering like lantern light. He approached warily, hand on his hilt. The glow resolved into a figure, a man sitting by a small fire, cloak drawn close. His face was hidden beneath the hood, but his posture was too calm for a ghost's. When he spoke, his voice was low, steady, and old. "You walk with the sea's scent still on you, Witcher." Geralt stopped a few paces away. "And you walk with knowledge you shouldn't have." The stranger lifted his head. His eyes gleamed red in the firelight, not the glow of a monster, but the glimmer of one touched by magic long ago. "I know because I've walked that path myself, down into the dark and back again." Geralt frowned. "Who are you?" "Once I was called Mile, a mage. A fool, perhaps, like the one you slew, Alzur." That name tightened Geralt's jaw. "You knew him?" "Better than most. I helped him build the first forges beneath Risberg. I watched him twist life to suit his dreams, and I warned him what would follow." The old mage stirred the fire with a stick. "Tell me, Witcher, did he die well?" "As well as he could," Geralt said quietly. "He tried to stop what he'd unleashed." Male nodded, gaze distant. "He always thought he could master what he made, but power is a tide. It rises until it finds a shore to break upon. You and I are what was left when it receded." Geralt folded his arms. "You didn't come here for philosophy." "No." The mage smiled faintly. "I came because I felt it. The tremor in the ley lines, the silence after the storm. The heart's echo is gone, but something else has taken its place. A void. Geralt's eyes narrowed. Meaning? When chaos is bound, something must fill the space it leaves. The world despises emptiness. That void now moves across the north, swallowing what remains of Alzur's experiments. Beasts that should not live grow restless. Dead things stir. It is not the heart reborn. It is what was beneath it, older still. Geralt looked toward the fog where faint shapes drifted between the trees. And you know where it leads? Miles' expression hardened. South, toward the broken marches, the place where Alzur first drew blood in his search for immortality. I would go myself, but my body's near its end. You, however, still carry his mark. Geralt sighed. You want me to chase another ghost? I want you to finish the circle, Mael said. You broke the chain once, now break its shadow. The fire sputtered, and for a heartbeat, Geralt saw the mage not as an old man, but as something else. A shape woven from memory and ash. His eyes twin embers of regret. Then he was gone, leaving only smoke curling through the fog. Geralt exhaled slowly, then turned back toward Roach. The fog parted before him, as if guided by an unseen hand. By the time he reached the marches, winter had deepened. Snow covered the moors like a shroud, muffling the land. The ruins of Alzur's first fortress stood on a hill of black stone. Its towers collapsed, its halls open to the wind. No bird sang there, no tracks marked the snow. It was a graveyard of magic. Geralt dismounted, tied Roach to a frost-bitten tree, and drew his sword. He felt the weight of the place settle over him, the residue of experiments. Screams turned to echoes. Inside the ruins, frost coated the walls like silver dust. The air was colder than the snow outside. Geralt moved carefully, boots crunching on glassy shards of ice. Symbols, Alzur's runes, still glowed faintly on the walls, pulsing in slow rhythm, as if the fortress itself still breathed. In the central chamber, a circle of stone remained intact. At its center lay a mirror, cracked but whole enough to reflect the faint light of his torch. Geralt stepped closer, and his reflection wavered. For a moment he saw not himself, but Alzur, alive, younger, his eyes bright with obsession. Then the image shifted again, showing something vast and dark behind the glass. You cannot kill what you are, a voice whispered from the reflection. Geralt's hand clenched on his sword. I've heard that before. The mirror rippled. From its surface stepped a figure, his own likeness, pale and scarred, eyes burning faintly red. The copy's voice was a growl, low and cruel. You destroyed the heart, it said. Now you've unmade the balance. Chaos sleeps, but the world demands a monster. It chose you. Geralt's medallion shuddered violently. He swung his blade, shattering the reflection. The room went dark. Then from the shards the twin stepped out, whole once more. Steel clashed in the frozen hall. Each blow echoed like thunder. The mirror creature fought like him, moved like him, every parry a mirror of his own. Sparks flew, blades sang. Geralt feinted left, drove a knee into the copy's ribs, spun and slashed low. The thing staggered, snarled, and lunged again. You are not real, Geralt hissed. I am what remains, the thing replied. The shadow you left behind when you took the heart's place. It raised its sword for a killing blow. Geralt dropped his own and caught the strike barehanded. Pain tore through him, blood spilling over his gloves. But he did not let go. He wrenched the blade aside, drove his head forward, and slammed his forehead into the creature's skull. Both reeled back. Geralt seized the moment, drew a dagger, and plunged it into the double's chest. "Then die as I live," he whispered. The copy's eyes widened, then dimmed. It collapsed, its body dissolving into mist that vanished into the cold air. The hall fell silent again. Geralt stood alone, panting. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from exhaustion. The mirror was gone, the reflection with it. Only snow drifted through the cracks in the ceiling, settling on the stones like ashes. He wiped his blade clean and sheathed it. Balance restored, he muttered, though the words rang hollow. Outside, dawn was breaking, pale light spilling over the ruins. Geralt mounted Roach and looked once toward the south, where the mountains loomed in gray distance. He could feel it still, the faint hum beneath the earth, the world's restless shifting. The heart was gone, the shadow slain, but the tide of chaos was eternal. And as long as it rose, there would be need for a witcher. Geralt of Rivia turned his horse north toward the road and rode into the fading snow. The wind from the north carried snow and the scent of wood smoke. Geralt rode through the white wilderness without hurry, following the curve of the Yaruga until it vanished beneath ice. The land here was old, scarred by forgotten wars, littered with the bones of castles and the ghosts of men who'd once believed their walls could outlast the world. He had left the ruins of Alzur's fortress 3 days past, yet their shadow still clung to him. Every night his dreams brought the same vision, a mirror that refused to stay broken. In its reflection, the sea roiled and boiled, and beneath it, a faint green light throbbed like a heartbeat. The Witcher would wake before dawn, cold and watchful, the fire long since dead. Now as he crossed a frozen bridge toward a small hamlet, he caught sight of smoke curling in lazy spirals. The smell was wrong, too sharp, too acrid. Geralt reined Roach to a halt. Smoke like that didn't come from hearths. He drew his sword before he saw the first body. The village lay in ruins, doors torn from hinges, snow blackened with soot and blood. Chickens ran loose among the wreckage, their feathers singed. A man hung from the eaves of a burned barn, his head twisted at an impossible angle. Bandits, perhaps, or worse. Geralt dismounted, moving between the houses. His medallion trembled softly, not the violent pulse of high magic, but a steady, uneasy rhythm. Whatever had done this was still near. He knelt by a corpse half buried in snow. The body was shriveled, skin clinging tight to the bones, eyes sunken. Not the work of a sword. Drained. "Damn," Geralt muttered. Footsteps sounded behind him. He turned fast, blade up. A figure stood at the far end of the street, a woman wrapped in a torn cloak, her hair white as frost. Her face was pale, almost luminous in the dim light. She raised her hands slowly. "I'm not your enemy, Witcher," she said, "though you're late." Geralt's eyes narrowed. "Late for what?" "The cleansing?" She stepped closer, her breath a faint mist. "They were already dead when I came. The curse took them first." "What curse?" "The same one that clings to you." Her words made him pause. His grip on the sword tightened. "You'll have to explain that." She smiled faintly. "Not here. The dead don't rest easy." And indeed, even as she spoke, the bodies around them began to stir. The air turned colder still. Frost crawled over the ground, spreading from house to house. The dead rose, their limbs stiff, their eyes black with void. Geralt moved in an instant, slicing through the nearest corpse. Its head rolled away, but the others kept coming. The woman raised her hands, murmuring words that sounded like the language of elves, but older. Light flared, and the dead froze where they stood, their flesh cracking like ice. When the last one fell still, the woman lowered her arms, breathing hard. They were taken by the shadow that follows the heart, she said. The void left behind. It spreads faster now. Geralt sheathed his blade slowly. You seem to know a great deal about it. I should. I was there when it was forged. That stopped him cold. That's impossible. The heart was made before the conjunction. Her gaze was steady, sad. And so was I. He studied her face, too perfect, too still. You're no ghost. No, she said softly. But I am what remains of one, Eileen, once of the Aen Severne. Geralt's breath caught. Eileen, I saw you in the forest before Thanedd. You said you were dead? I was. But the binding you broke beneath the sea loosened the ties between worlds. Spirits now drift where they will. Some cling to flesh, some to memory. He looked around at the frozen corpses. And these? The void hungers. It devours the warmth of life. I tried to stop it, but its roots run deep. Geralt frowned. Then tell me where they lead. To the mountains of Mahakam, she said. There, in the catacombs of the deep, Alzur hid his first failures. The void gathers there, feeding on the remnants of his craft. If it reaches the surface, no ward or sign will contain it. Geralt rubbed a hand over his beard. So I climb into another tomb to bury another ghost. Elin tilted her head. You sound weary. I am. You could turn away. The world would die just as swiftly without you. Geralt met her eyes. I've heard that before, too. For a long moment, they stood in silence while snow fell softly around them. Then Eileen extended her hand. Come, I can guide you as far as the border. After that, the path belongs to you alone. He hesitated, then took her hand. Her skin was cold, but not lifeless. Together, they walked through the ruined village, past the dead who no longer stirred. At the edge of the forest, Roach waited, stamping impatiently. As they rode north, the trees grew darker, the wind sharper. Eileen spoke little. When she did, her voice was low, distant, as though remembering another life. Alzur sought to master death, she said once. He thought it could be shaped like clay. When the elves refused to aid him, he turned to chaos itself. The heart was not a prison then, it was a seed. And like all seeds, it left roots. And you're certain those roots are in Mahakam? I was there when he buried them. Geralt glanced at her. You said you were one of the Aen Severne. Why help him? Because I loved him, she said simply. That silenced him for a long time. When they camped that night, the fire crackled weakly, barely enough to hold back the cold. Geralt watched the flames while Eileen stared into the dark beyond. Tell me, he said at last, if the void feeds on what's left of his experiments, what happens when there's nothing left to consume? She turned to him, eyes glimmering like moonlight on ice. Then it will turn to what made them. To you, to me, to all touched by his work. It will swallow magic itself. Geralt grunted. Sounds like a quiet world. It would not be a world at all. He said nothing more. The night passed in uneasy silence, broken only by the cry of distant wolves. When dawn came, the snow had thickened, blanketing the land. They rode again, climbing into the foothills. By evening, they reached the first of the Mahakam passes, a narrow trail cut between cliffs of black rock. The air here shimmered faintly as if the world itself held its breath. Eileen reined in her horse. Beyond this path lies the place men were never meant to tread. I cannot follow you farther. My form will not endure in what waits below. Geralt dismounted. You've already done more than most. She smiled faintly. You remind me of him, the man Alzur was before the madness. Perhaps this time the ending will be kinder. Don't count on it. He turned toward the pass, snow crunching under his boots. Behind him, her voice rose once more, soft, fading. Beware the shadow that wears your face, Witcher. It does not die. It waits. When he looked back, she was gone, her horse and her light swallowed by the snow. Only her words lingered, echoing between the cliffs. Geralt drew his cloak tighter, adjusted his sword, and stepped into the mountains. The wind howled above, but beneath it he thought he heard something else, the slow, steady rhythm of a heartbeat, pulsing deep within the stone. He followed the sound, and the storm closed behind him. Snow fell thick and silent upon the Mahakam peaks, muffling the world in white. The path before Geralt wound ever upward, narrow and treacherous, carved long ago by dwarven hands, now long turned to dust. The wind howled through the ravines, sharp as knives, carrying with it whispers that were not quite words. He trudged onward, his breath misting before him, the weight of his swords heavy on his back. The mountains loomed on all sides, ancient, vast, indifferent. Each step echoed faintly, swallowed by the cold. By dusk, he reached a plateau overlooking the valley. There, half buried in snow and ice, stood the entrance to what the elves had called Ve Enduin, the Deep Forge, Alzur's first laboratory, and, if Eileen spoke true, the cradle of his failures. 2 broken statues flanked the gate, one of an elf, its features eroded, the other of a man, his eyes gouged out. Between them yawned a dark tunnel that exhaled cold mist. Geralt lit a torch, its flame bending in the wind. He stepped inside. The air changed immediately, warmer yet stale. The walls glistened with frost and crystal veins that pulsed faintly with light. His medallion stirred against his chest, vibrating like a plucked string. There was power here, sleeping, waiting. The passage sloped downward, spiraling into the mountain's heart. Strange markings covered the stone, runes half elven, half human, fused by some crude, unnatural art. As he walked, he caught faint echoes of chanting, distant and low, as though the walls themselves remembered the mages who once toiled here. After a time, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. The torchlight could not reach the ceiling. It was lost in shadow. In the center stood a circle of pillars surrounding a pit filled with shimmering liquid metal. The forge. Geralt approached cautiously. The air above the pit shimmered, distorting his reflection. He saw not his face, but 100 others, men, elves, monsters, all blending into one another. He stepped back, drawing his sword. A voice rose from the dark. So the child of Alzur returns to his father's cradle. Geralt turned sharply, blade ready. From the shadows stepped a figure, tall, cloaked, face hidden by a hood. Its presence was immense, pressing upon the senses like the weight of deep water. "Show yourself," Geralt growled. The figure lifted its head. Beneath the hood there was no face, only a shifting void of light and shadow. "Do you not know me, Witcher? I am the thought he left behind, the last dream of Alzur's mind." Geralt's grip tightened. Another echo, another ghost. "Not a ghost," the thing said. "A will Alzur sought to master chaos, but when his flesh died, his mind endured, woven into the void he created. I am that remnant." Geralt's medallion quivered violently. "If you're what's left of him, then you know why I'm here. Yes, you came to end what he began, to cut the roots of the heart before they strangle the world. The creature's voice deepened, cold and hollow. But you cannot kill what you are. You carry his mark. You are the last vessel of his design. I'm no one's vessel. The cloaked form stepped closer, gliding rather than walking. A lie you tell yourself. Look around you. This forge was built to birth a new race. The Witchers. Not heroes, not men. Tools of balance forged from chaos and pain. Alzur made you to contain the fire, not destroy it. Geralt said nothing. The voice softened, almost kind. He tried to perfect what the world feared. You are that perfection. You survived what none could. Tell me, child, have you never felt it? The hunger, the whisper of what sleeps within you? Geralt's jaw tightened. He remembered the pull of the heart beneath the sea, the echo that had burned through his veins. I felt it, he admitted, and I fought it. Why fight what you could rule? Because I've seen what it rules. For a long moment there was silence. Then the creature's form shifted, its voice turning harsh. You cannot deny me forever. Every monster you slay, every drop of chaos you spill, it feeds the void. You are not its enemy. You are its herald. The forge began to tremble. The liquid metal within bubbled, rising in waves that reached toward the ceiling. Shapes formed in the molten light, limbs, faces, the broken silhouettes of things that had once been human. Behold what you were meant to lead, the void whispered. The figures climbed from the pit, hissing steam, their eyes glowing with green fire. Mutants, malformed and half-born, the remnants of Alzur's earliest creations. Their flesh was scarred with runes, their mouths filled with jagged teeth. Geralt muttered an oath and raised his blade. The first creature lunged, striking with inhuman speed. He sidestepped, slicing through its neck, then spun to block another's claws. The forge chamber erupted in chaos. Steel against flesh, screams echoing off stone. He fought like a storm, each movement measured and brutal. A cut to the leg, a thrust to the heart, a roll beneath a sweeping claw. One by one, the creatures fell, their bodies dissolving into ash as their blood touched the molten floor. But more kept coming. Enough! Geralt roared, slamming his palm to the ground. The sign of Igni burst from his hand in a roaring arc of flame. Fire consumed the chamber, washing over the pit and the rising horrors. The heat scorched his skin, but he did not falter. When the blaze finally died, only the crackle of cooling metal remained. The mutants were gone. The forge glowed dimly, its surface fractured and still. Geralt fell to one knee, panting, his sword slick with black blood. From the smoke, the void's voice returned, faint now but defiant. You think fire can end what was born in it? You will see, Witcher. You will see. The air shimmered, and the figure vanished, leaving only silence. Geralt rose slowly. He sheathed his sword, his hand trembling. The forge's light faded to darkness, but deep beneath the metal, something still pulsed, a slow, steady rhythm like a heart. He turned and made his way back up the passage, torch guttering low. When he stepped into the open air, the night had fallen. Snow drifted down in heavy flakes. Roach waited where he had left her, frost crusting her mane. Geralt mounted without a word and looked once more toward the cave. Lightning flashed far off, illuminating the peaks. For an instant he thought he saw the shadow of Alzur standing among them, hand raised in silent farewell, or perhaps warning. Then the light was gone. He rode down the mountain, following the narrow trail toward the lowlands. Behind him the forge collapsed inward, swallowed by its own heat. The sound rolled through the valley like distant thunder. Geralt did not look back. He had learned long ago that some victories were only pauses between disasters, and somewhere beyond the snow, the void was already stirring again, whispering with a voice that sounded too much like his own. Dawn bled slowly across the horizon, staining the snowfields gold. The Mahakam peaks stood black against the light, their tips crowned with mist. Geralt rode eastward, his cloak stiff with frost, his thoughts heavier than the mountains he'd left behind. The forge had fallen silent, the shadow dispersed, but the echo of the void's words lingered in his mind like a fevered whisper. You cannot kill what you are. He tried to bury it beneath the rhythm of roaches' hooves, beneath the hiss of the cold wind, but it followed him, persistent and patient. By midday he reached the edge of the dwarven frontier. Smoke curled from a cluster of chimneys in the distance, and the faint clang of hammer on anvil carried through the crisp air. Geralt rode into a small settlement wedged between cliffs, a trading post where miners and mercenaries gathered before venturing deeper into Mahakam. The folk there watched him warily. Witchers were not unknown to dwarves, but few were welcomed warmly. Still, coin was coin, and the innkeeper, a squat fellow with a beard like braided wire, poured him ale without question. Geralt sat by the fire, letting warmth seep into his limbs. He hadn't realized how cold his bones had become. As he drank, the door opened and a figure entered, stamping snow from his boots. A dwarf, armored in steel, an axe slung across his back. He spotted Geralt at once and grinned. By the hammer of Mahakam, if it isn't the White Wolf himself. Thought you were buried under half the north by now. Geralt looked up, a faint smile ghosting his lips. Zoltan Chive. I'd ask what brings you this far south, but I suppose trouble follows you the way snow follows winter. Zoltan barked a laugh, dropping heavily into the chair across from him. Aye, that it does. Escort job gone sour, bandits, a busted cart, and a merchant who ran faster than a hare with his beard on fire. But enough about me. You look like you've been chewed up and spat out by destiny itself. Geralt took another sip. Something like that. Zoltan's gaze sharpened. You're chasing ghosts again, aren't you? Not chasing, trying to bury them. That's what I said the last time I cleaned up after a ghoul feast, Zoltan muttered. Didn't end well either. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Outside, snow drifted lazily past the windows. Eventually, Geralt said, You know these mountains better than most. Have you heard of anything unnatural? Things stirring underground? Zoltan frowned, stroking his beard. Aye, rumors mostly. Miners vanishing near the old veins, tunnels collapsing without warning. Some say the earth itself's gone sour. Dwarves whisper about shadows moving in the rock. You thinking it's connected to your, Witcher business? Everything's connected, Geralt said. And lately nothing good. Zoltan grunted. Well, if it's under the mountains, you'll need more than a sword. The air down there kills slower than any blade. I'm not planning to stay long, Geralt replied, though even as he said it, he doubted the truth of his words. They left the next morning. Zoltan insisted on joining him, claiming that no self-respecting dwarf would let a friend blunder into Mahakam's guts alone. Geralt didn't argue. Companionship was rare, and Zoltan's axe had never failed him before. The road soon gave way to a winding descent, a path of stone steps carved into the cliffs. Snow thinned as they descended, replaced by damp mist and the smell of iron. The deeper they went, the more the world changed. Sound grew hollow, light dimmed, and the air trembled faintly with the heartbeat of the earth. At the base of the descent, they found a gate of black metal, its hinges sealed by rust. Strange runes were etched upon it, familiar in shape yet twisted. Dwarven craft, Zoltan murmured, tracing the symbols with a gloved hand. But these markings, they've been changed. Human sorcery. Bad kind. Geralt drew his sword, the silver catching the faint torchlight. Then we're in the right place. They forced the gate open. The passage beyond yawned wide, swallowing them in darkness. Moisture dripped from the ceiling, the echoes sharp and distant. Their boots crunched on gravel that gleamed faintly, crystals growing like veins through the rock. The deeper they went, the warmer it became. Geralt's medallion began to hum softly, a sign of active magic. The air smelled faintly of blood and sulfur. Zoltan's voice was low. "You sure this place isn't cursed? I'd be surprised if it wasn't." They reached a cavern vast enough to hold a fortress. At its center stood an altar of stone surrounded by circles of runes that glowed dimly green. Upon it lay the remains of something enormous, bones blackened and fused with metal, like the corpse of a creature neither wholly beast nor machine. Zoltan whistled. "By the gods! What in Mahakam's name is that?" Geralt stepped closer. The bones were familiar, too familiar. The structure of a witcher's frame, twisted, multiplied, enlarged. "One of Alzur's first creations," he said quietly. "Failed, but not forgotten." As if in answer, the cavern trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. The runes flared brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the grounds shaking. Zoltan swore. "What now?" "The void," Geralt said grimly. "It found this place." The altar split down the middle. Light poured from the crack, blinding white edged with green fire. From it rose a figure, not monstrous, not human, but a shape of smoke and shadow wearing a man's form. "You should not have come, Witcher," it said in a voice that was both many and one. "This place is the heart of what you are. You cannot destroy it without destroying yourself." Geralt raised his blade. "We'll see." The shadow moved, fast as thought. Its tendrils lashed through the air, striking sparks against stone. Geralt rolled aside, slashing upward, the silver cutting through darkness like moonlight through cloud. Zoltan roared and charged, axe swinging in great arcs that split the air. The battle was chaos. Fire erupted from the runes, pillars of molten rock tearing the ground apart. The shadow struck again and again, its blows landing with the weight of mountains. Geralt's Quen shield shattered under the force, sending him sprawling. "Geralt!" Zoltan shouted, dragging him to his feet. "Any bright ideas?" "Just one." Geralt drew a small vial from his belt and smashed it at his feet. Smoke burst outward, filling the cavern with choking fumes. Through it he traced a sign, a perfect Irden circle. The runes flared purple, trapping the shadow within its light. The creature screamed, its form flickering, unraveling. "You cannot cage what is part of you." "Maybe not forever," Geralt growled, "but long enough." He plunged his sword into the ground, channeling the last of his strength into the circle. The runes flared, blinding white, then collapsed inward, dragging the shadow with them. When the light faded, the cavern was still. Zoltan coughed, waving away the smoke. "Tell me that's the end of it?" Geralt wiped blood from his lip. "No, but it's asleep again. For now." They climbed back toward the surface in silence. The sun was setting when they emerged, the peaks burning gold in the fading light. Zoltan clapped him on the shoulder. Well, Witcher, if the world's still standing tomorrow, you can buy the first round. Geralt managed a faint smile. You're on. As they rode down into the valley, the last rays of sun touched the mountains. Far above, hidden in shadow, the cavern walls pulsed once, just once, with faint green light, like a heartbeat too slow to notice. And somewhere deep beneath the stone, the void whispered again. The snow melted as they descended from the high slopes of Mahakam. Below them, spring had begun to breathe upon the land. Rivers thawed, trees budded, and the world that had seemed dead began once again to stir. Yet Geralt of Rivia felt no warmth in it. The fire he had seen in the depths, that sickly green light pulsing within the bones of the mountain, had left its mark upon him. It flickered still in his memory, like the afterimage of lightning behind closed eyes. He and Zoltan rode in silence for many miles. The dwarf hummed tunelessly, his axe across his knees, his breath puffing in the cold air. Geralt kept his gaze on the road where mud and thawing frost mixed into a treacherous mire. The wind carried the scent of damp earth, and beneath it something fainter, metallic and sharp. You've been quiet, Zoltan said at last, squinting up at him. Usually when you're that quiet, something nasty's coming up behind us. Geralt gave a faint snort. You might be right. I usually am, the dwarf said, though his grin was thin. So tell me, what in the bloody hell did we wake up down there? Not what, Geralt said softly. Who? The void we fought was only a reflection, a shadow of Alzur's mind, or what was left of it. The rest of him may still linger somewhere deeper. Zoltan spat into the mud. You mean that mad old Mage's ghost is still whispering under the world? By the anvil, the man didn't know when to stop breathing. Geralt did not answer. He was watching the horizon. A storm was gathering there, not the kind of storm that came with thunder and rain, but one that darkened the air with dust. It rolled across the plains like smoke, swallowing light as it came. He tugged at Roach's reins. We need shelter. They found it in a ruined chapel a few miles ahead, a lonely relic of stone half sunk into the hillside. Ivy had devoured its walls, and the roof had fallen in long ago. Inside, the floor was carpeted in moss and broken glass. Once, it had been a temple to Melitele. Now only a cracked statue remained, its face worn smooth by time. They made a small fire, enough to hold back the chill. Zoltan muttered to himself as he cleaned his axe. Geralt sat apart, sharpening his blade with slow, steady strokes. After a while, the dwarf spoke again. You think it's over, don't you? Geralt looked up. No, I think it's only sleeping. Zoltan sighed. Aye. And when it wakes, then I'll be there. Always the bloody hero. Not hero, Geralt said quietly. Just stubborn. The storm reached them at midnight. Wind howled through the broken arches, and the fire guttered, throwing mad shadows across the walls. The Witcher's medallion trembled once, then fell still. Outside, the world vanished into a haze of dust and darkness. Through the noise, Geralt heard something. Not the voice of the wind, not the shifting of stone, but a whisper like a breath against his ear. You cannot bury what was born of you. He stood abruptly, sword in hand, eyes scanning the shadows. Geralt? Zoltan's voice was wary. Stay behind me. The air shimmered near the altar. A figure took form, first mist, then flesh. It was Aline. Her eyes glowed faintly and her hair floated as though underwater. Witcher, she said, her voice a soft echo. The mountains tremble, the void stirs once more. I sealed it, Geralt said. You saw it yourself. She shook her head. You bound it, yes, to yourself. You carry it still. Geralt's grip on his sword tightened. That's not possible. Look within, she said. Can you not feel it? The rhythm beneath your heart? He did not want to, but he closed his eyes, and there it was. A faint pulse, too slow to be his own. He had thought it memory, the lingering pain of battle. Now he knew better. Zoltan swore. Don't tell me the damn thing's crawled into you. Aline's gaze was sorrowful. It clings to what it knows, to what it made. The heart was never destroyed, Geralt, only divided. Part lies still beneath the sea, part beneath the mountain, and part in you. Geralt sheathed his sword slowly. Then tell me how to rid myself of it. There is no ridding, Eileen said, only choice. You can let it fade, bound within you until your death, or you can release it and doom the world anew. The Witcher's jaw clenched. And if I end myself now, her voice softened, then chaos will pass to another. It cannot die with you. Only you can contain it, as Alzur once tried. Silence filled the chapel. The storm raged outside, rattling the stone, but within all was still. Zoltan stood, fists clenched. So what? He just lives like this, carrying a bomb in his chest, waiting to blow? Eileen's eyes never left Geralt's. It is not a curse. It is a burden and a gift. Through you, the world will hold a fragile peace. But when your time ends, someone must take your place. Geralt laughed once without humor. And who in all the world would volunteer for that? No one volunteers, Eileen said, but fate finds its heirs. She stepped closer. Her hand brushed his cheek, cold, insubstantial. You were born of chaos, Witcher, yet you choose to wield it against itself. That is what makes you more than the sum of Alzur's sins. Then she was gone. The storm began to fade, its howl replaced by the soft patter of rain. Zoltan sank heavily onto a broken pew. I never liked ghosts, he muttered. They always talk in riddles. Geralt did not answer. He stared into the dying fire until only embers remained. At dawn, they left the chapel behind. The world was washed clean by the rain. Villagers were returning to the roads, wagons creaking, dogs barking, life carrying on, unaware that beneath their feet, a fragment of chaos beat in rhythm with the heart of a witcher. They rode until the road forked. One path north toward Cadwyn, the other east toward the Pontar. Zoltan reined in his horse. Well, old friend, I think this is where we part. I've had enough of prophecies for one lifetime. Geralt nodded. Find a good tavern, stay out of mines. Zoltan grinned. And you? Where will you go? Wherever there's work, Geralt said. Wherever monsters need killing. The dwarf chuckled. Then the world's in luck. It'll never run out of those. They clasped forearms, then parted ways. Geralt rode on alone. The sun rose higher, glinting on the sword at his back. In the stillness of morning, he could almost believe that peace had returned. Yet beneath the rhythm of his heartbeat, he heard another, faint, patient, eternal. He did not fight it. He had lived too long to fear what could not be changed. The world would turn, men would err, monsters would rise, and somewhere within it all, a witcher would keep walking. Geralt of Rivia rode on through the mist toward the horizon where sky met earth. Behind him, far beneath the soil and stone, a light stirred, dim and distant, like the last ember of a dying fire. It flared once, then fell silent. For now, the world was safe, but in its quiet heart, chaos dreamed.